Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, back to wrap it up with some bonus time and some questions from you. It is the inaugural Matador Mob Mailbag Q&A for those who are getting down with us in the Matador Mob. You can be one of those if you like. If you haven't already, get signed up for a direct line throughout the week. 24/7, 365. You want to holler at me on Christmas morning, it may take a bit for me to get back to you, but you can still holler whenever you like. So check it out in the show notes or on our Twitter page at Locked On Tech if you are interested in trying that son of a gun on the exclusive way to submit questions for the Matador Mob Mailbag. Let's get rolling, Chris. Don't want to waste any time. You can't waste any time whenever you're in the ring with the Bulls. So here we go. Question number 1. This goes back to obviously something that was relevant in Pullman, Washington, something we've discussed on the show this week could be relevant against the Arizona State Sun Devils and their mobile QB. We've talked about employing a spy defensively for Texas Tech. Did we actually use one of those in Pullman? The question is, did we use a spy at Washington State? What do you know about it?
Here's how I would answer that. Technically, do I know the answer to that? I don't know if anybody has specifically stated, yes, we did or we didn't. But here's what I will tell you to give you some context. Tim DeRuyter has said this. We did not think that they would run their quarterback in any way like that they did, talking about John Mateer. One, because he's like, man, it's a non-conference game. We didn't think that they would put their guy in harm's way that many times and lay it all on the line that early. Okay, so there's one thing. 2, they had not really shown that much of this before this game. And, you just had the one game before that, but even in the times that he played last year and whatnot, and he admitted, he's like, this is just not what we thought. So here's what I would say. You may have used it maybe some in the second half as you started to see how they were going to use him, but you hadn't practiced it a bunch or hardly any leading up to it. So that's the best way to answer that one. And I think you'll use one against Arizona State? Probably, yeah. All the time? No. Who will do it? Good question. But because this quarterback has absolutely shown you, in Sam Leavitt, he will do this. Because some of the stuff at Washington State and John Mateer was doing, they were called runs, but still, were both of these guys hurt teams, it's the stuff you can't defend. And what I mean by that is, it's covered. Okay, you know what? Screw it. I'm tucking it and I'm going. And you just have a hard time containing that. That's where hopefully your speed and athleticism comes in. Your linebackers have to be really good, and your pass rush can't be overzealous. You can't go up the field and just go, and then he just steps up, and it's like, okay, well, I'll take my 10 yards. And guys, if you're just going to keep running upfield, I'll just step up in the pocket, and away I go. So easier said than done, but you really want to kind of rush it and collapse it, kind of keep him contained. But he's good at extending plays and just kind of taking off when nothing's there. If he starts seeing the names on the back of the jerseys covering and like, okay, nobody's going to pay attention to me. I got the ball, that deal. So, but I would, based on the way Tim talked about it earlier in the week, I guarantee you've practiced this concept quite a bit. Now, are you going to be good at it? Who will have that task, or whom? If we're going plural, good question. We'll all find out together.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit more intentional, or sounds like a lot bit more intentional preparation. Did I say a lot bit? A lot more intentional preparation this week for what you're going to face against Arizona State. Look, I'm not surprised Washington State's laying it all on the line when Texas Tech comes to their house. We're always everybody's Super Bowl, so non-conference, conference, whatever it might be. Not shocked they're pulling out all the stops to try to take care of the Red Raiders. And they did. Okay, congratulations to them. Let's get on to question number 2. This involving ball carriers that will be in red and black. Oh, and by the way, I did ask this week, put it to the Matador Mob members, who do you want to see spying the quarterback? Most popular choice, Mike Dingle. And I think a lot of people are feeling kind of like I was, like, I don't know if it's the best choice, but it's kind of the one that I want to see. It's the one I want to see. I want to see that Scud missile unleashed. But obviously a lot of folks, and I gave them all the options that we had talked about. Guys like obviously Roberts and Rodriguez, Dingle, Jordan, McCarty, John Curry was on the list as well. And Dingle was the most popular response that we were getting back. But in tandem with that, a lot of folks saying, it's going to take discipline, maturity with the eyes, maturity with the pursuit. Does Dingle quite have that just yet? I don't know, but we'll find out together who that option or options are going to be. All right, let's get to those ball carriers in red and black. This question says, are we going to see Brooks and Dicky in the backfield at the same time, and how much? If I gave you an over-under of 4.5, what would you take? What do you think, Chris?
Well, is this mean like 4.5 times in a game, or 4.5 times for the rest of the season?
I think specific to the game.
Okay. I'll be shocked if you don't get some semblance of some two-back sets, because we've talked about Coach Kitley, and actually Kenny Dillingham is the one that really pointed a lot of this out, is that you get a lot of variety. I talked to Dre McCray about it on the Coach McGuire show this week too, and he was like, it's really fun playing an offense like this because we're introduced with new concepts or new wrinkles weekly, and you're not real sure when you're going to be involved, when you're, what the wrinkles are going to be. But it's something a bit different each week on kind of an emphasis or a position group or a formation or all the above. And I think now granted, if you have two backs on the field at the same time, that means one of your really good wideouts or maybe one of these tight ends or whatever, they're not on the field. And so that you got to pick your poison. But I'd be willing to bet that at some point this year, you're going to get into a lot more two-back stuff, because that may be something that you choose to feature, or with whether it be formation or a lead blocker or whatever the case may be. And if you're going to feature it, it certainly would be more than 4.5 times a game, wouldn't it? Or in a particular game. Now, do we see that out of the gate here? If you're asking me about that for versus Arizona State, I would probably say no. But to be determined.
Okay, fair enough. I think my answer to that Matador Mob member that submitted the question was that I would actually like to see an under on that number, and it somewhat ties into what you just said. I love so much seeing, and I know they were tight ends, not fullbacks, but I love seeing some lead guys for Taj Brooks, and I hate to always put it to another running back to be a lead blocker, if that makes sense. And so I don't know if we're going to see that again or not, but kind of like you're saying, the guy that it would take off of the field, if you do have him out there at the same time, maybe something to consider. But I would imagine that, like you said, if you're featuring that, then it's definitely going to be over 4.5 snaps within a ball game. But we'll see. This is the first week without Cameron Valdez, or I shouldn't say that, he was out last week too, but where they've had a chance to really plan the entirety of the week to not have him in the mix. So we'll be curious to see what they roll out for game number 1 of that kind of experience, 7 days running now against Arizona State. All right, let's get to the next question. This question having to do with the equivalent of a football bookworm, I guess. First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors, and eBay has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road, or elevate your car's game to the next level of performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, accessories of all kinds to fit your style, whether it's speed, power, or design you're into. eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. Just head over to ebay.com/motors, where you'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and at no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. This question says, which players consistently show up to the Monday optional film study? Curious who our film dudes are. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, and that's something I need to write that down and ask Joey that. I mean, because these days, so much of this is tracked on iPads. All these players have iPads that the school gives them. That goes on in pretty much, I think, every football program, certainly at the Power 4 level.
They don't have to go in and rent a reel-to-reel or anything.
Yeah,
like dark room.
I know that it's funny. Like, who watches film? Well, nobody. It's always on video or whatever, or it's on your damn, personal device, and you can watch it at home.
Yeah.
It's just but the way that a lot of those software programs work is it tracks it. This even spills down at a high school level. It tracks it to where they can tell who's watching it and what they've watched and how much people are watching it or not watching it is the case. But I'll go back to an answer that Coach McGuire gave about a lot of the discrepancy in the age on this team. And what I mean by that is we just talked about these guys, but you've got 2 freshman running backs playing, okay? But then you have one of the oldest guys on the team in Taj Brooks. It is unbelievable for them to have the experience of seeing how Taj Brooks handles his business, film, weights, nutrition, sleep, in front of the media, whatever, you name it. They have a perfect example of what they are trying to be and just can sit back and watch. Joey even mentioned, like, here's a subtle one that, nobody else would have known had he not mentioned it, because people are going to be like, who's that? But like Tyson Turner is one of your freshman wideouts from Bryan, Texas. So when Dre McCray was on the show this week, Joey said Tyson Turner owes a great deal to Dre McCray. Dre McCray's taught him how to be an older, mature college player. He's kind of changed his life and all that by the experience that he's talked to him about and just kind of taking him under his wing and all that stuff. You had Tim DeRuyter say in a I guess it was earlier this past week, this is why Chapman Lewis is having some success, because he got to watch Rabbit last year.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of some of the other examples, but bottom line is it's not just film, but it's like having great examples to look up to that you ultimately want to be just like and play the same position, and you're trying to learn, you're trying to get to where they are, because Rabbit, he's in the NFL. Taj probably going to be in the NFL. Dre McCray, all Big 12 guy, been a Big 12 Player of the Week already this year, all that stuff. And so these are good, and there's a lot of those guys sprinkled throughout the program that are really good to emulate. And heck, you wish you had somebody like that at every spot, but not possible. But so that's probably a different way to answer on who's watching film or not, but we can certainly pass that along to Coach McGuire for sure.
Yeah, appreciate that question. Not really something I would consider all that often, but obviously something that goes into a guy trying to separate himself from just being good to being great and maybe giving himself an opportunity to be a professional someday. So appreciate that question, and we will wrap it up with kind of an outside the box question, certainly not relating to the game this weekend or what's happening this season with the football program, but sort of a bigger picture question as it relates to the future of college football and really intercollegiate athletics, I guess, as a whole. This has to do with cash O'Lean, straight cash, homie. This question, are public versus private universities going to be at a disadvantage when it comes to profit sharing? Thinking that if public universities have to openly post what they're giving players versus a private university, it may be a disadvantage. Not something I've even considered. So thanks for putting it on my radar. But what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, it's always frustrated like Texas Tech fans when you don't know what Baylor's doing or TCU's doing. How much are they paying coaches? It's all hidden and shrouded in secrecy because they're a private institution. So you can't Freedom of Information Act it. It doesn't have to be reported and all this stuff. As far as relates to like this question and Lick's part of it, hell, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what is ultimately going to happen here. I would be willing to bet you, though, that that may not hold water in this from a house settlement case result that says, here's what you must pay, here's the cap, here's the roster limits, show us your cards. I don't know if the private versus public thing applies in that sense. Maybe some of those private institutions will go, no, we're fighting this. They're a long ways from passing that. I think every institution, though, right now, or I say that every football program is certainly preparing for revenue sharing. I mean, I've seen everything this past week from, hey, we're going to charge 10% more to every season ticket in our stadium, Tennessee. I've seen everything, including like, folks, we can't continue to ask the Jones family, the Walton family, and the Tyson Chicken family for more money. We need 3,200 people to give $100 a month, and then we can make 3.2 million, and that'll alleviate some of the cost stuff. I'm trying to think of some of the other examples. The Matador Club just kind of started a campaign.
Yep.
So everybody is anticipating the revenue sharing part, I guess is my point. Nobody really knows, though, what that is going to look like, but everybody feels like, oh, it's happening, and it's just a matter of what, when, and where. And I think that there's even stuff being talked about as far as the roster limit stuff on you're kind of maybe formulating plans and decisions about your roster now. And hey, man, if we have to trim it, I'm not sure so-and-so would make it, because you may have to make those decisions. I mean, in a matter of, like, I don't know, 8 to 12 to 16 weeks, from now. I don't know when that has to be. Yeah, like maybe December. Mm-hmm. Does this determine? Do you recruit less people because you're going to? I don't know. I don't know. And I think you're also, and I'll wrap up with this. You're also getting into some stuff as it relates to NIL because people are talking about, well, we want to know what everybody's given. You're going to start getting into like multi-year agreements. You're going to start getting into bonuses. You're going to start getting into, hey, if you graduate here, we'll give you a bonus. Hey, if you stay here, we'll pay for your combine training. If you are really good and can make it to the NFL, hey, we'll pay for, all these kinds of things. It's wild what we're about to get into. But at the end of the day, do we really know what we're getting into? Not really. We think we kind of know, but we're not real sure. So public versus private, hell, I don't know, man.
That was offering a lot of information to wrap it up with a hell, I don't know. I think you may have an idea or two as to what could come to pass. But who does know? Because we're opening up a Wild West can of worms, and I'm certainly here for it from an entertainment factor standpoint. But I don't know. That's kind of interesting, too, to think about bonuses and multi-year contracts and different things you could offer to a student athlete to be enticing, which is a 4-letter
Remember
word.
when everybody was just going to sell T-shirts? Hey, guys, can't we just put his jersey in the bookstore and he gets money for it?
What we were.
Yeah, like the Fab Five back in the Michigan days. It's like, heaven forbid we let everybody buy baggy shorts and those kids got some money for it. Because now, now it's like bonuses, multi-year deals. Hey, we want to know what you're paying them, as in the rest of society. And we want to know what every school's paying their guys. So we were making sure we're keeping up, or if we're getting lapped or whatever. It's crazy.
It's wild to consider, and we have only just begun to experience the wildness. I have no doubt about that. Speaking of a wild and woolly crew, the Matador Mob, best way to get in touch with Chris and I, direct line, hit the QR code if you're watching on YouTube, or check out the link in the show notes or on our X account at Locked On Tech if you're listening in via podcast. And the only way to get involved in the Matador Mob mailbag. So get involved if you have not and you got the desire. You can get a 14-day free trial. Try it on, see how it suits you. Thanks for those who have taken the plunge thus far. Chris, thanks to you, especially for a little bonus time to answer some of these questions. Keep them coming, and we'll keep it rolling. Appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoyed it.
My bucket is officially empty. I'm ready to fill it up next week. Guns up. Talk to you next time.
That's right. Hopefully partially filled by a 1-0 Big 12 record for the Red Raiders. So, again, thanks for the comments and questions. Keep them coming. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And thanks for those everydayers out there, and especially the ones that show up twice a day when you got some bonus Locked On Texas Tech like you got right now. For Chris, I'm Casey. We appreciate you being out there and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.